Full disclosure, and I'm excited about today because we've got John Carlson. A lot of people around the Phoenix area and nationally know him as the president of Mark Taylor. They are at this point the largest multifamily developer in Arizona. Been open, 36 years in business now, over 4 billion under management. So, John, I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. Excited to get to know you a little bit and talk about Mark Taylor, one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, we haven't gotten a chance to talk a lot, but just in like 5 minutes before we started recording, I'm like, John and I are gonna this isn't gonna be stiff and cold at all.
No, we're gonna riff and have a good time.
So, why I was drawn to your story. There's a lot of people in the real estate space. There's a lot of people that, were playing with capital and that's kind of, helped their careers grow. You were someone that, walked into a Mark Taylor community in 2002 and you've earned your way up the organization over the last 19 years. So I'm inspired, and I think a lot of people will be inspired by your story. What has contributed, I know it's tough to summarize this in one answer, but what has contributed to your personal success as you've kind of climbed through the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think back and, I think the cliches would be working hard and all those things, but I think moving to Phoenix in 2002, and actually it was 2001, but starting with Mark Taylor in 2002, I really didn't know what Mark Taylor was. It was the last community on our apartment tour when I moved to Phoenix with my girlfriend at the time. And we had to catch a flight, so we were running fast and just kind of walked around the community with San Cervantes and Chandler. Okay. It was construction, so brand new lease up. I think only a handful of buildings were open. Okay. And keep in mind, I was living in a rundown duplex in Mankato, Minnesota. So as I walked around the corner of the leasing office clubhouse area, sand beach pool, waterfall, resort. I felt like I was in Cancun. I told my girlfriend, like, we have to live here. I don't know who built this, but it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So sure enough, we signed the lease the next day and moved the following month. And it was an odd time. So we moved August of 01. Okay. And the September 11th attacks happened the following month. Yeah. And on the 13th of September, I was supposed to fly to Chicago to ink a deal with a fuse company that was open satellite office here. And it didn't happen. And, my career was suddenly, I guess, earthquaked. Yeah. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an engineer. I had a great 4 or 5 year run with my company. Yeah. So in sending out resumes during that time frame, and mind you, it was a bad time for semiconductor space and just being here, period. Got to know the folks in the leasing office. It was a Mark Taylor managed asset, obviously. Yeah. And the manager, Michelle Sinclair, who I love dearly, said, "Hey, why don't you just do some part-time leasing?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Whatever. I'm in the. I love to work. I love to stay active." Yeah. So I started doing that, and subsequently met the previous president a few months later on Saturday. Had a fantastic conversation, and the rest is history. But I feel like my path into real estate was happenstance. It wasn't planned. I don't think anyone grows up saying, "I'd love to be a part-time leasing consultant at age 23." Yeah. Hopefully that starts to change. Unless that was me, and I just with the organization. A year later, after I started, the girlfriend and I broke up. These things happen. I'd say not the weather, Jordan. So really, as a trailblazer for me and family, I was the first one here. I knew no one else. So Mark Taylor became my family. Yeah. I really fell in love with the people. Now you can look at the real estate and everything that Jeff Mark and Scott Taylor have developed over the last 30 plus years, but the connection, the family away from family, propelled me to really to sink my teeth into the organization. So I don't want to poo-poo hard work. I think that matters, and certainly that's how I was raised. Yeah. My father was a farmer. and truck driver and owned an implement in a small town in Minnesota. So I had ample opportunity to work every day, every week.
Yeah.
So I was a busybody anyway, and it just didn't feel like work to me. I just really felt like business. So that's kind of how it started for me.
Nice. Yeah. Hard. I mean, I don't know, like people, especially Midwest where you're from, like I'm from Chicago, like hard work is just like it's like an odd, like a duh thing. It's not as much a separator. It's just like, that's how you're raised. And then that's just what you do. And that's not necessarily, you know, a huge deal. It's just kind of expected.
Absolutely.
When you, I mean, if I think 19 years ago in Chandler, it must have been like, that must have been one of the only nice, like upscale communities out there. Cause I know the Valley has changed so much in the last 19 years.
So much. I mean, I think about when I moved, the 101 freeway had just opened, and it ended at Chandler Boulevard.
Yeah.
Regional Mall had just opened. So pretty remarkable when you think about the growth of the city or metropolitan area into 5 million folks today. But yeah, I fell in love with the desert in Arizona, and I mean that was a true special community for me, and still is. My mother and brother still live there today.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Full circle 20 years later. Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, in another 20 years, we'll be looking back right now and be like, all the California people and et cetera, coming into town. And I think, I mean, we both know, I mean, we support a lot of, you know, whether it's construction or, you know, property management, real estate developers. It's a crowded space here locally. So I think, you know, Mark Taylor saying you're the top multifamily in town, it means a lot more than it does in other states. What do you think? I mean, summarizing what has contributed to the success of the company over the last few decades?
Yeah, I think, 36 years in business in real estate means you're doing some things the right way. And I give full credit to Jeff, Mark, and Scott Taylor, our principals and founders. I think their vision for what they wanted to create, many, many years ago, going back to 1985, before they formed the organization, and thinking about what they've done, really came from the development side first. So Jeff and Scott, you can see the photo behind me. They've developed just over 20,000 units in Arizona, the most in the state's history, threefold. And you think about what they've developed. If you went to San Cervantes today, the one I mentioned earlier, and looked at that asset, it looks almost brand new. It's really timeless architecture. So people can say, well, yeah, it's three-story garden style walk up and end. But if you actually get a chance to go to a deal, they're phenomenal. There's something different about them. And it was through their vision. Fast forward, developing their presence and growing the organization and business and shifting into management. I think today that's afforded us the opportunity to have some phenomenal assets to call our base, our home. We're about 20% owned, 80% third-party managed. So it's helped propel our management side. And if you think about the success, you mentioned our 10-year track record of being number one in ranking Arizona for both development and management. I think it really comes down to the people. For our interaction today, I pulled our employee summary of 560 employees. And I looked at the tenure within the organization. And if you look at the percentages, we have just over 35% of our organization has been with the organization 5 or more years. Just under 20%, 10 or more years. So the consistency, the investment, the development, knowing that, when I look across the table at these folks, I know how they're going to act. I know they're going to do the right thing, which is one of our principles. Just do the right thing. So having that core base of employees or what I like to say family, Mark Taylor family, helps us as an organization onboard highly capable, talented folks. I don't want to say it's easy. We can teach property management, but if you have really the right guiding principles, the right characteristics, we call it DNA. We look for certain things: humility, work ethic, being curious. All of these things that feed into our principles really helps transform that individual when they join the organization, so they become part of our Mark Taylor family. So most importantly, I give credit over the 30 plus years to the people.
Yeah. And those retention rates for your industry are incredible, because a lot of those positions are traditionally higher turnover type skills.
No question.
So,
yeah. And so, I mean, and a piece of that too, Jordan, is, we've always been strong believers of promoting from within. I can look at my MCOs or managers of community operations, look at that band. And if I onboard a new leasing consultant or a new service tech with our service facilities, I know they're going to be mentored the right way by the tenured employees. And it matters a lot because doing leasing or doing a service turn is different with Mark Taylor. We focus on different things. Excellence is one of our strategic initiatives, and how we meticulously detail a unit is often different than what you'd see with another organization, or how we create a customer experience. So allowing our mentors, those managers, to really facilitate that onboarding process and create the right environment and ability for them to build their career, but doing so with the lens of the Mark Taylor DNA in guidance, it matters a lot.
We both know this. Not that business is simple, but I think when you look at, kind of what you've just outlined, having that framework, those principles, and then really walking that walk, I think a lot of real estate companies and recruiting companies, the same thing. They're setting out to do the same things, but so much kind of gets lost in, the boardroom to actually, office desk level interactions. Has it been just how careful you guys have been, and from a hiring perspective, has it been, putting an importance on management to live and breathe these principles, or a combination of everything? What's contributed to kind of taking those ideas and having the end tenants really feel that on a day-to-day?
Sure. I'll touch on that in a couple of ways. So one, you mentioned, how we hire. So we have a talent acquisition department that focuses solely on finding or identifying the right folks, right? The folks with the right DNA. We have one of those characteristics. I won't share all of them. I mentioned a couple earlier, but if they have the right DNA, that allows them the opportunity to join our organization. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have a certain skill set on the service side or from a sales perspective, but it means that they identify with our culture, right? There's a connection because they have the same DNA. So the onboarding process is incredibly important. We take that very seriously, more so than ever, because I want to protect what we've built. So allowing the wrong person in is oftentimes just a troubled experience because they don't connect with the folks that we have because of that DNA and how we operate. Secondly, one of our principles, 5 principles today, is being transparent. Something I started in January is what we call a clubhouse chat. So once a month on video. Now we've dealt with the pandemic. I was trying not to say that word during this entire conference.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
but in 2020 we lost some connectivity because we weren't physically interact. We couldn't tour properties. We couldn't get together. We couldn't have our holiday parties or picnics, have you, right? So there was some connectivity that was lost. So in January, I started this clubhouse chat. So via video, I get every employee on a video for 90 minutes. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But when you said earlier, it triggered something, the lack of transparency from the boardroom to an employee, what their level is oftentimes difficult for organizations to handle. I think it creates a riff. It creates a narrative that's not always best, and it's not something that allows for what I'd like to say top-down, bottom-up transparency. So just sending messages from a boardroom, it's very calculated, and here's the delivery, and we're really trying to frame this so the employee thinks a certain way. I think a lot of organizations do that. For me, in Clubhouse Chat, I allow anyone to ask me any question. I'll talk about principles every time. Every month, we're talking about examples of it. First time we did it in February, where we're saying, okay, let's talk about our principles. We had a live chat going, and I just asked the group to say, okay, start giving me examples from each community of how you've lived these 5 principles.
Okay.
And it was amazing. It just started to it was like a forest fire with wind.
Yeah.
And it couldn't keep up with the chat. Like example A, B, C,
Yeah.
be transparent, choose the right attitude, be
Yeah.
better than today. And it was just flowing and flowing and flowing.
Yeah.
And I have tingles right now thinking about that, because it was the entire company sharing their principles or our principles, the president, and we're just riffing back and forth. And what I believe to be true is it allows my employees to communicate directly with me. My message does not get filtered. If I want to talk about something, here it is. And I'm telling it to you directly.
Yeah.
Me being authentic and transparent is a really big piece of my DNA. Allowing the organization to do that once a month, I think will only help us really, connect even more. Obviously, we're getting back out in the field more and more as we open. But I think this is something that will stick for a long time. And so, Jordan, the other piece is I'm not driving the agenda. It's my employees. So what do you guys want to talk about so we can get ready for it and prepare? I'm always going to have something I want to say. As president, I have messages and things that I want to communicate, but it's really about them. So the last clubhouse chat was a lot about them. They said, "Hey, we want to be more transparent with potential openings, right? Opportunity in my career." So now we post that with every clubhouse chat. Said, "Hey, would you mind doing the clubhouse chat remotely? Come to our communities, do it with our team versus just doing it in the corporate office." Yes, done. I'm going to do it. Our first one at the Gramercy that opens in Scottsdale this week. So I'm going to do that next week
Nice.
for the clubhouse chat. So, that's a big piece of how we're communicating and connecting through transparency.
It looks like a great property. I've seen pictures.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yes.
I think, you can argue, right? Like when you started at Mark Taylor, you were very overqualified for that job. You could say, maybe.
If I had to do software or electrical schematics, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could say that eventually.
I mean, but I think like if I look at your career, it's you took a role and you walked the walk and did the best you could in that space, and then the promotions was an organic thing because you were so good. I'm inferring things here, but you were so good at what was on your plate at that time that it was just a natural progression. Because so many people that watch these, like the questions are always, how do you grow your career? What do you need to do? And I'm sure you get a lot of those questions too. Was that in your DNA to just be the best at whatever you were given? Or was that a mentality that you had to go into Mark Taylor with coming in?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Jordan, I think back to when I was younger, and I was very competitive, very sport orientated, played a lot of fast pitch softball, basketball, baseball, football. We were state champions in basketball in 1983. So, I mean, that was just part of my DNA, being competitive. And what I didn't realize until really the last 5 years is that one of my personal mantras is be better than yesterday. And, I didn't necessarily live that out loud in terms of mentally saying, this is how I should think, or this should be my principle. I was just living it. I didn't identify with my true principles until later in life. So when I look back as a young part-time leasing consultant, an assistant manager, asset manager, VP, et cetera, I think I was really good at mastering my roles in the here and now, but also identifying myself with leaders within the organization and out, mentors that could help guide me. I think humility plays a big role in success. I realized I didn't know everything. I asked a lot of questions. I'm always concerned about younger folks that start with our organization that never ask questions or say, "Oh, I got this. I know it." No, I know how to do these things. That tells me there's an insecurity buried deep within, and a lack of acknowledgement about things they don't know. So I've been notorious for being curious and asking questions over the years, and aligning myself with the right leaders and picking things that I felt like were great things to maintain. Like this person does X, this person does Y. I'm going to hold on to that. Those things will create value for me. And what I realized though is as you grow within an organization or grow in leadership roles, it starts to be less about how you perform in your role, right? It's very, almost one-sided. Like if I do this well, I'll perform. But as you grow, become a leader, now it's a how do you take care of the organization outwardly? How do you take care of your employees, 500 plus employees today, and grow them? It's not about me anymore. So I don't want to say it's lonely at the top, but it's certainly it's something that you have to evolve in. Leadership role, influencing becomes much more a piece of it, right? So now I spend a majority of my time influencing. It's not can I get my spreadsheet right, or can I leave this apartment? So it's completely different today.
Yeah, that was really good, and it kind of leads into my next question on. I mean, is there anything, and it's a cheesy question, but I think it's important because I always like to hear people who have, been very successful and say, if John Carlson today, President of Mark Taylor, could go back to, the young buck that was, at St. Cervantes in 02 and tell him anything, what would it be?
I think two things initially. A, anything's impossible. B, wow, you have no wrinkles, no gray hair. Fantastic.
Enjoy
20 years ago. So no, I mean, I think to focus in on and anything's possible. When I look back at that time, I had a job offer with an engineering orientated organization I think it was about 9 to 10 months after I started with Mark Taylor. Okay. So I had a decision to make. Can I go back to the career I knew and something I was familiar with and comfortable, or do I continue down this path, which instinctually felt right? I felt like, I connected in this role, this organization, with the people, the company, et cetera. And I went with my instinct, even though it wasn't ultra comfortable. So, I think over time, and I think back to college, I was deathly afraid of actually speaking in front of rooms. I think I failed my speech class because of it. So I know over the last 20 years, I put myself in a lot of uncomfortable positions.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you look at, okay, my new challenge is XYZ, right? So going from assistant manager to manager, these new responsibilities, I now have to be client facing. I have to understand the business as CEO of my community. Challenging, of course, scared at times, absolutely. But willing to put myself in uncomfortable positions to grow, because the reality what I like to say, if we're in a fixed mindset, this is what I know. I'm going to stay in this lane. I'm going to continue to go down this path because I feel good. I'm not going to, my heart rate stays low. I'm not sweaty. I don't have to worry about failing. You'll be in place for a long time, and it's okay. But for me, in my organization, we have to be in a growth mindset. So it's a different way of saying open-mindedness, but really, how can I push myself, accelerate my growth, be better tomorrow than I was yesterday? I always say this, and you've heard this from me before, but I'm not the man I was even a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. However, I'm very comfortable with who I am today, but I know based on who I am and what I want to accomplish, I'll be better tomorrow in 5 years. I want to look back and say, wow, changed a lot in a good way. But also, in being in a growth mindset, you have to be willing to accept failure, right? Failure is just going through a bunch of experiences and learning from them. If you're not willing to do that, that's a problem. So I know there's a lot of organizations, and we did this for a short term too, where there's fear of because what are the consequences? Well, the consequences are you'll get better, right? Oh, I screwed this up the other day. I'm going to assess what happened, build upon that and grow. So it's okay to fail. I've failed a lot. I made choices, but I picked myself up, my boots on, as one of my mentors used to say, and just kept going. I remember back to 2018, and I was approached to chair the board, the AMA, the Arizona Multi-Housing Association board. And I was a bit nervous at the time. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I think looking back, I was absolutely ready. One thing, I'll be vulnerable. My executive coach pointed this out to me at one point in our conversation over the last year. She said, sometimes you'll look in the mirror and she'll say, even though you're a lion, you'll see. Think about that for a second. I'm putting certain doubts and limitations on myself. But in the growth mindset, the right format, the right mindset, you'll propel through that, right? You'll see the line. I can accomplish this. I can do things. We set some pretty outrageous goals this chair, and we exceeded them. I felt like we did a really good job pre-pandemic with the organization and getting us ready for what's to come. So I just think a lot of those things tie into being successful. You don't have to be the smartest, most educated, come from the right side of the track, so to speak. Do these things. So I think a lot of that's part of my success today.
And it's like, I mean, you said it, people could see us one way, but it is how we see ourselves. And I've even dealt with this as we've grown our little firm. Like, there's been so many times where we've needed to hire more people and just fear-based, oh, are we ready? Or do we have the business? And it took, I think at every level you see people have coaches. And if you've mentioned your executive coach multiple times. Without mine, not that I'm that accomplished, but I wouldn't even be anywhere near where I am today. So people I think that they think, the learning stops at one point and that you reach a point and that you've made it. And then it's like, no, it's a constant thing, as that you're constantly pushing yourself and your company to do more. And it's uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And I wanted to kind of talk about the demand for high-end apartment living. Obviously, we all know what's going on with the housing market, but what do you see for the future of your industry moving forward?
Yeah, a couple things. So, going back to March of last year, we had a pandemic sprung upon us. Executive order by Governor Ducey, March 14th of last year, essentially making us, I don't want to say a victim, putting us in a position where we had to operate our business with our doors locked, pandemic. And we realized in April, so fast forward a month from the executive order, in April 2020, we leased twice as many apartments as we would have otherwise. Doors locked during a pandemic. So we sat back as an executive team and said, how the hell did this happen? We have to really, right? I mean, let's look at our business model. And for me, never let a good crisis go to waste is one phrase. So we thought a lot about that. Okay, what's happening here? We really reassessed how we conduct our business. And what I like to say is that I feel like the moment that executive order happened, the old apartment model of operations died.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is for so long, we've operated our communities a certain way across the country. So I realized that technology has sped up so fast in an accelerated manner that we were capable of operating our business slightly different. Now, that doesn't mean we're compromising our level of service or how we conduct the business. We had to really assess and say, okay, what are we doing that's right? What are we doing that's wrong? So I can tell you today, we're building a new model for that. And there's a phrase where we also focused in on last year where in times of great change, learners inherit the earth while the learned are perfectly equipped to handle the world that no longer exists. So I want to be a learner, right? So that's part of the growth mindset. So we're developing new tools, new systems, new ways of doing things in this next generation of apartment management, which excites me the most. And how are we going to do it? Through our people. But we're going to, leverage technology and the things we've learned during this last 12 or 14 month stretch to propel our business. So I'm really excited about what's ahead. And then, from a Phoenix perspective, it's important to know that we are in one of the best operational fundamentals of all time. 95 was maybe the best year on record, 18 and 19, 2 or 3. 2021 will surpass 3. So there's a lot of arrows pointing to Phoenix, right? So you think about the capital chasing Phoenix in specifically the multifamily space and industrial. We are the darling in terms of multifamily. And if you pick up location, Phoenix is where people want to be. So it's exactly the opposite. In my 20 years in the business, I remember back to 2011. 2011, we were like the plague. No one, I mean, you couldn't get capital here at all. I don't even think anyone that was part of an institution would land their plane in Phoenix,
Nope.
right?
This
So
is dirt here.
completely different today. And we envision, as an analogy, we see a funnel of capital or money sitting above Phoenix, trying to access deals. And there's more money than there is deals. The deal flow is incredible in terms of the inflation of pricing. That want to move here. So now, I mean, all roads lead here. People want to live here. People want to work here. People want to start companies here. The California inflow is remarkable. I look at my Google Analytics in 2020. LA was the 5th most searched out of 25 cities. Now it's number 2. We have 0 assets, 0 units in California, right? So that's something about that. Phoenix is 1, LA's 2, Gilbert, Chandler, Scottsdale, Tempe, 3 through 6. So the California effect is real. It's the first time in our history where the single family for sale market is as on fire, if not more, than multifamily. So all these things are happening at the same time. As last month, we had 0.37 months of supply for single family homes. Basically, if you take the number of homes under contract, we have 2,700 homes available for just 5 million people. So if you think about price appreciation today, it's going to accelerate even more. We can't build ourselves out of that fast enough. So there's tremendous momentum with this market. Every song ends, right? So this will change at some point. But really good position today. So that's where we are.
Got to make hay while the sun's shining, right?
Exactly right. My farmer dad used to say, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I'll wrap on, I mean, you mentioned a basketball player in the U1 state. You never forget that stuff because, we lost in the semis here at Pinnacle High School, and that was like 06. And me and my buddies, we get together every week and we still play. I mean, we're a lot slower than we are. You still hit the courts, or you?
So my analyst, he has a court at his mom and dad's house, so we'll get out there and play a little bit. But it's compared to what's funny though. I mean, basketball. I think back to our success from the basketball team. We were eating and breathing basketball. We played 7 days a week. We weren't the fastest, the tallest, the most athletic. Man, did we had synergy and commitment, and I knew where that guy was going to be. He was going to be. I mean, we were in sync. Did we work hard? Absolutely. But there's a lot of great things about that team that helped me grow from there. And was I cocky that year? Knocked down from that standpoint. And then attitude came into play, right? So when you're at that peak, and for a small town, that caps me out.
You're God,
we do trips through elementary schools and do autographs.
We never did that. It's awesome.
So I mean, the last thing I want to say, I guess attitude. That's one of the things that is also near and dear to me. Choose the right attitude. And I say to my new hire groups every 2 weeks, like, that's a choice. I say this to my 9-year-old Lillian, stepdaughter, who I love dearly. Attitude matters. When you wake up in the morning, you can choose your attitude, just like your shoes, your makeup. You can choose that. It doesn't matter if you have education, where you were born, where you come from. It's a choice. Choose the right attitude, which is really a component of growth mindset. So that's been a big mantra of mine over the last 5 years, really focusing on the right attitude. We all have bad days, but if you show up the right way, you just create such an open-mindedness and ability to grow. It will transform your life.
And you and your company are living proof of doing that, and that it pays off over the long haul. So, John, can't thank you enough for making time. This is awesome, man.
Love it. Let's do it again, and let's get together, have a beer.
Yeah, we have to.